No NIL taxes in the state of Mississippi. Is it overblown, or is there more to this story that we need to dive into? Let's talk about it on the Portal Podcast crossover with Locked On Ole Miss.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
To a crossover Locked On Ole Miss and the Portal. I am Brian Smith along with my buddy Steven Willis. Thank you to everybody for stopping in, making sure that our shows are your first listens each and every day right here on the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, Locked On. We're brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Right now, you can download the Game Time app, get $20 off your first purchase. Just check out the Game Time app. It is a great place to get tickets. Steven, we're going to talk a little bit about a kid that is getting some run with Ole Miss right now, BJ Allen. He plays with Coastline Stars, a program that I follow around everywhere they go. I know BJ well. He was just in the van I was driving around, sitting in the passenger seat next to me. We're going to talk about him and his recruitment and why Ole Miss, and quite honestly, tons of schools are after him, even though like early on he committed to Mississippi State. It could be one of those fun Egg Bowl recruitments. You never know how that's going to go. We're also going to talk about Ole Miss's spring depth chart. Anybody you think might rise, anybody that might change positions, anything at all. We're going to pick Steven's brain on that. But the first thing is the one that everybody's talking about. I've lost track of how many shows I've been on radio, etc., about the whole state of Mississippi with the NIL tax thing. So first off, I want to make one thing clear. Regardless of where you stand on this, do note the following is fact. The states, among others, that matter, Florida and Texas have no state income tax, period, in general. So it's not like Mississippi's going to be the only one. Tennessee's had no state income tax for a long time, minus dividends forever. Arkansas last year did this, but nobody cared. No offense to the Hogs, but they're terrible, and that's why nobody cared. But now the state of Mississippi doing it, and yeah, they're trying to help their in-state program, Southern Miss, Mississippi State, and Ole Miss. It's not a shock. With that being stated, I want to give it to you, Steven. Do you like this, dislike this, and where do you think this will take other states? I have a strong opinion about that as well.
I do like it, and it's because Texas and Florida have no state income tax, Tennessee. So those three states you're competing with right off the bat. And Arkansas, they just got a Tyson's food sponsor that most of that money is going to go into NIL. So they could have something cooking up in the Ozarks. Every school needs an advantage at this point. Everybody needs to figure out a way to make this work. And this is the optics more than anything, because in-state income tax is not that much money. Even if you are a high paid athlete going through, state income tax like 3.5%, 4%, something like that. So whenever you get that break, it's more of an optics thing. It's a recruiting tool more than anything else. I compare it to, you want a Amazon distribution center in your city, you give them tax breaks in order for them to come. This is kind of the same thing. You want to find the next Trinidad Chambliss, here's the tax breaks for you to come. I don't think it is overall, other than recruiting, going to matter that much. But I will say this, it's better to not have it than have it in the age of football when you're recruiting against Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and Arkansas.
Yeah, you got to look at it from a perspective. You got to keep up with the Joneses. So I get it. Here's my question to you, and I don't know if you'll think in the same linear line that I do. Now that the state of Mississippi, and I don't know if they're done, by the way, but there could be other obstacles I got to do past the House to get this done. I don't know how it works there.
Yeah, it has to pass the Senate, and it has to then go to the governor. So there's still a couple steps.
I imagine that if it passed the first one, more than likely it'll pass. They probably have already gotten an idea where the vote's going. But anyway, what do you think the next state is to pass something like this that's going to compete with Ole Miss?
Probably Oklahoma, maybe, would be one of the next ones if they have a state income tax. I'm not sure if they do.
They do have a state income. That's my second pick. My first pick is Louisiana. Why do you think it's Louisiana, Steven?
Well, it's
exactly. This is a forest for the trees here.
Yeah, that's one of the most corrupt states in the history of the United States. So if there's like, oh my goodness, I'm just surprised they didn't get here first.
To be honest, I'm surprised. But for those who don't know, the state of Louisiana, because all the floods and everything, and it's terrible, all the hurricanes, that state has been behind financially forever just on that, in addition to the corruption there, which is probably the worst in the country. Like, it's that bad. And it's been that way for 100 years. This is not a recent thing. But they love the Tigers. So are they going to try to keep up with Ole Miss? 100%. I'm curious to see what comes out of that state in the next 3 months. I will be shocked if there's not.
Yesterday, there's that group in Dallas that is doing a Cody Campbell Save College Sports type deal that is put together by a private equity firm. LSU's president was there and was told to go there by the Louisiana governor. That's what they're going to do next.
Why would LSU need private equity?
They just spent $90 million on Lane Kiffin, and they're playing Brian Kelly's buyout and all of that. They need money. You mentioned their financial difficulty.
Yeah, it is.
It just feels like they're putting it on the credit card at this point.
I can't imagine that a school like that doesn't have a handful of boosters that are really wealthy. That's surprising to me. But there's deals where there's a lot of things going on, and maybe they're just checking their edges and making sure they got everything they need. But if they need that money right away, that's not a good sign for LSU. I didn't know it was that dire. So yeah, that's good information.
That's weird that LSU is the first SEC team that's playing the private equity game. That's weird.
That program. It shouldn't. That should be more like Mississippi State. To be honest, be fully honest, that makes no sense to me. But to each of their own.
Yeah, it's just weird because what good has private equity ever done for anybody?
Yeah, you're probably going to lose in the long term. There's a reason those people got a lot of money. They know what they're doing when it comes to contracts. They're smart. Your pick for Oklahoma was also a good one, though. I want to bring this back up. That state is losing to Oklahomas and Oklahoma States are losing to all the Texas schools, and they both recruit there heavily because, as you noted correctly, it's a non-income state tax state. It's always been that way in Texas. I'm surprised Oklahoma hasn't done something. And now that Mississippi and Arkansas have, in addition to Tennessee, I'd be shocked if the state of Oklahoma didn't push forward as well. And there's no program that hates Texas more than OU. So that's part of this as well. They try to recruit, especially Dallas, the recruiting battle for the Dallas kids, because they're both about 3 hours from Dallas, OU and the University of Texas. I bet that's the next state. So I don't know how far it'll go into the north. I don't think as many northern schools will do this. Maybe Indiana or Ohio or something. But in the South, I imagine this will kind of matriculate around, and most of them will do something to this effect. So Mississippi is just one of the first. I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm not surprised. I get it.
And I guess we probably shouldn't count out Alabama. How often is Alabama and Auburn going to sit back and watch them have a disadvantage recruiting players?
It's interesting because Alabama is one of the most conservative states, hates change from a governmental standpoint, hates change, but they hate to lose too. That's the proverbial rock in a hard place. I don't know how that's going to work because a lot of the constituents won't like that law because there's been some pushback. I'm sure, as you know, Mississippi, hey, I'm paying income tax. These kids should too. I get it. But it's an arms race in football. It just straight up is an arms race. So I understand both sides of the argument. And in Alabama, those people are not very happy at either school right now. So you bring up a very good point, especially if Alabama doesn't make the playoff this year, which I'm not sure they're going to. They'll care less about change if Bama doesn't make the playoff this next year. Like coaching change and everything.
One thing that's interesting is Alabama is putting a focus group together, a study together to determine whether their junior colleges are going to play football. And that is something that would affect Mississippi. The Mississippi JUCO system is very good. And right now with everything that's going on with NIL and eligibility and stuff like that, JUCO could be a more popular route for players to go through that were going to La Monroe or like that, those type players, because you can develop for a couple of years and maybe you get a payday.
That's an interesting point. I didn't know that there were going to be any options. I'll have to look into that. Thank you for that, Steven. Mm-hmm. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Ole Miss spring football. That is next right here on the Portal Podcast crossover with Locked On Ole Miss.
I'm Clea Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Number 1 ranked UConn dominated St. John's 85-49 on Sunday at Madison Square Garden, extending its winning streak to 47 games. The Huskies capped a perfect 31-0 regular season, including 20-0 in the Big East. UConn is winning by nearly 38 points per game, the third largest average margin in Division I history. Since 1999 to 2000, UConn has 9 undefeated regular seasons, as many as all other programs combined, and has turned 6 of those into national championships. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Thank you once again for making Locked On the Portal and Locked On Ole Miss a part of your day each and every day right here. But we also have another opportunity for you, especially for you audio listeners, the Locked On Everydayer Club. If you take your pods on the go like I do, go for a walk, go to the gym, go to the grocery store, long drive, get your podcast with no ads, $5 a month or $50 for the year. And down below in the description for each of our podcasts, there is a link to the Discord and more, a little bit of everything. And I know Steven's got a whole bunch more stuff going on his than I do. Make sure you check them out. It is the Locked On Everydayer Club. All right, Steven, the spring practice session for the Rebels, when are they starting, or did they already start this week? Is it next week?
They'll start March 23rd, so 2 weeks from Monday.
Okay. The guy that I'm most curious about, as I told you before the show, is Perkins. How are they going to use him this year? Is it going to be a hybrid situation? I hope that he's more downhill than he was last year. He's okay in coverage and stuff, but I think he's a much better player staying within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage throughout the play. Simplify, attack, and kill. He can cover, but if he blitzes, if he rushes, there just aren't many guys as athletic and as instinctual as Perkins. What do you think they're going to do with him this year?
I think it's going to be closer to what you saw in 2024 with Suntarine Perkins, because last year they had some guys that tried really hard. They were fairly good players. They didn't quite work out, but there were problems at the safety position for Ole Miss, free safety, strong safety, and the slot corner, essentially, that you had to protect those guys, because if the other team knew that you were throwing the ball, just consistently doing it, you had no chance. You saw that in the game in the national semifinals against the Miami Hurricanes. There was a coverage bust. They had trouble in the back end of that defense doing it, so you had to protect them. So what does that mean? That means drop 8. So they consistently dropped 8 back into coverage, and that meant Suntarine Perkins, who's a linebacker, dropping back into a zone and a lot of zone defense. Well, what did Ole Miss do? What did Pete Golding do? They went out and got Jay Crawford, one of the best cornerbacks and one of the best defenses in all of the SEC. All of a sudden, you're in pretty good shape at corner. In the back end of the defense at safety, they brought in Edwin Josephs from Florida State and Janelle Aguero from Georgia. And the young players that weren't quite ready to play, they're counting on them taking a step this year, which means man coverage could be more of a thing. And that happens. You're sending 4, you're sending 5, and you're trusting the defense to get home. You can play the double team game where Will Eccles and Michael Boreau can take up a double team and put the guys on the outside and loose and all of that stuff. The stuff that you saw Ole Miss do in 2024 that they just weren't able to do. And that is how Suntarine Perkins is going to turn into more of that player, is because he's going to be able to, because you're not going to have to protect the secondary as much.
Yeah, that means he's going to be rushing the quarterback, I would say probably 15, 20% more than he did during the 2025 season. Who else in the front 7 do you think is going to benefit from this more aggressive style of play? Is it Kent Franklin, or is it somebody else? Is it Eccles? Who do you think?
Well, I think as we've discussed multiple times on this show, what the big boys do on the defensive line and how they free things up, I think Will Eccles is going to be double teamed on every single play. So I don't think he has the numbers that just eye pop jump off the page. The same goes for either Otis or Barreau, whoever is the zero tech playing in the system. I think it's Blake Purchase, the transfer coming in from Oregon. I think if he has the opportunity to kind of be on the other side away from Suntarine Perkins, they can cause a little bit of havoc on the outside, as Ole Miss has been prone to do. And don't forget Luke Farrelly. I think Luke Farrelly, everybody wants to make jokes because of Dabo's tamper tantrum that he had. He's going to be a good sideline player. He was extremely well coached at Cal under Justin Wilcox. The man knows defense. I think he is going to be an upgrade at the middle linebacker position as well.
Well, you got to have somebody to rack up the tackles. So that's always a good thing. Offensively, obviously the running back, that's steadfast. Quarterback, that's steadfast. Offensive line's probably a little more settled than what it normally would be at Ole Miss. You lose Caden Lee. He transfers to Missouri. Who's going to be the main guy, you think, at wide receiver? Or is it still going to be more balanced, you think, overall?
I think it's going to be balanced, but Ole Miss has 15 years of having a dude. They always seem to have a dude, and I think that guy this year is going to be Jonte Cook, the guy who went to Texas out of high school, ended up at Washington for a cup of coffee, went to Syracuse, got 50, 60 catches, and kind of broke off with a lacrosse player at quarterback. Transferred to Ole Miss. I think he has the chance to have an elite ceiling. And you can attest to this. There's not many players that kind of jump off the page whenever you go to the Under Armour All-American game because there's so many good players. Like, for instance, Zach Branch is one of those guys that you just immediately saw and could tell he was a dude. One of the other players that I saw that did that was Jonte Cook. I was really excited about the possibility that out of high school he could have ended up at Ole Miss before he went to Texas. So I think he would fit in and could potentially provide an Elijah Moore level impact at the slot position. And the outside guys are going to be the outside guys. Deuce Alexander, he's probably going to wear the number 1 jersey, which since Laquan Treadwell has become a thing at Ole Miss. So I think Jonte Cook is first in line to be the alpha, but you're going to have Deuce Alexander and those other guys as well.
Well, that's not surprising that they would have somebody. That's kind of par for the course. As for the offense overall, is there anybody, because they got more depth than they've had in quite a while too, is there any particular player that you think would be in a normal Ole Miss year? Obviously, this is a top 10 team, bare minimum, that maybe he'll play a lot, but as a backup, that's a key guy. I don't care if it's quarterback. I don't care if it's running back, receiver, tight end. Who's a backup that's going to get some run that maybe people aren't talking about?
Well, probably Caleb Odom, honestly. He is a tight end. This will be his first year where he just is a tight end from the very beginning, from the jump. I expect them to do some things with him because with Luke Haas and Michael Smith coming in at tight end, that's obviously a stacked room right now. But the matchup problem that Caleb Odom provides gives you a weapon inside of the red zone on short yardage, going against linebackers and safeties for the other team that can't be matched. He has to work on his hands. He had some dropsies from time to time a year ago. But if he sits in front of the jugs machine for the next couple of months, I think he's going to be okay.
He's a really good athlete. I saw him in high school, 6'4", 215, 220. He's a pure flex tight end, big receiver, call it whatever you want. But he's got good hands. He's got great body control. I think he's going to be a really good player. When we come back, we're going to talk about a recruit I know and how recruiting overall for Ole Miss has changed quite a bit. That's next year on this crossover Locked On Ole Miss and the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at TurboTax. It is tax time, and for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment, that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a whole bunch of papers in your hand, emailing back and forth, wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can make face-to-face appointments with a real tax expert and get your documents updated and uploaded right there, straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. TurboTax experts work to get every dollar that you deserve while you get real-time notifications about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head over to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your TurboTax appointment today. We are also brought to you by Game Time. The biggest stretch of the college basketball season is almost here. You know that time of year with all the conference tournaments and everything, the buzzer beaters, bracket busters, and those unforgettable moments that everyone's talking about the next morning at the office. Being there, though, live for a big-time game, a buzzer beater, there's nothing like it. It is bucket list stuff. The hard part is always actually getting the tickets to those kinds of games. Long queues, prices jumping around, and surprises at checkout. The Game Time app, it's a little bit different. It gives the fans an advantage again. The constant innovation, it's how you unlock amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I know this firsthand because I didn't buy tickets from Game Time. I bought tickets twice. Both times, very simple. 5 minutes, in and out. I did all of the following. Found the game I wanted, got the seat view I wanted right on my phone. I could see the ticket, click on it. You can see the court from that space where you're going to be sitting, and got my credit card information in, done. 5 minutes, in and out. So make sure you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use code LOCKEDON. That is LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, Stephen, I want to talk a little bit about recruiting. There's one kid that Ole Miss is involved with. I didn't ask him this past weekend too much because I've talked to him quite a bit about it, but Brandon BJ, we call him BJ, Allen from Westlake High School, same high school as Cam Newton, by the way, on the west side of Atlanta. He's an elite recruit. He committed early to Mississippi State, but Ole Miss is one of the other schools getting involved. And I want to use this as a barometer. BJ was one of the first kids when I was standing next to Andrew Ivins at the Miami tournament, first tournament of the year, Battle Miami. It's the most important one in our industry. Every major team in the country goes to it. And I'm standing next to Andrew Ivins, who does all the rankings for 24/7. He's like, who's that guy? He's got 3 PBUs in this game since I've been standing here. It's a kid that had just started to blow up, and now he's got offers from pretty much everybody. 6'1" corners don't grow on trees. He's instinctive. He's very athletic, and he's used to playing against big-time competition at Westlake High School. Those are the kinds of players that make a difference, because if you really think about all the things that go on in college football, there's only so much you can do against an elite quarterback. Length is one way to at least mitigate it. This kid, as long as it gets, and he's the kind of player that, honestly, Ole Miss doesn't normally get out of high school. To see them get in on kids like this in Atlanta, like Caleb Odom and different guys over the last few years, digging into Georgia, digging into Alabama, digging into Florida, getting kids that Florida State wanted, Georgia wanted, Auburn, Alabama wanted. The script has changed. I still think they'll use the portal quite a bit, but if you can get kids like BJ to come visit you, that's a different ball game. And we're blessed at Coastline Stars to have kids like him playing for us. And I take it for granted because I get to see him every time we go play somewhere. But like Ole Miss fans need to understand, it's not just about BJ. It's the fact that the level of recruiting that Ole Miss is doing is different from a measurable standpoint. Like, he fits the measurements that Georgia wants. If that doesn't register for you, let me explain this. Kirby will literally not offer a kid over a 1/4 inch. And I'm not kidding. Like, he's that specific. He is paranoid about the littlest things. BJ's going to pass all the measurements. So to put it mildly here, I think not only do they want BJ, they should, but this is the kind of player that you get when you know you're ascending as a program. What do you think about the recruiting that Ole Miss is doing, Stephen?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to focus on the fact that he's a Mississippi State commit at the moment, just because of the Ole Miss State Egg Bowl thing. But he's from Atlanta, essentially, which means that the rivalry thing isn't playing in his mind. He committed to Mississippi State because it was the best opportunity. And this is the recruiting class. This cycle is the class where Ole Miss gets to make hay off of their playoff berth.
Yes.
So they get to recruit to that. So they're going to be able to impress all of these kids with something that they're trying. You know, it's like, hey, we are 19 seconds away from a national title a year ago, or a game appearance, and all of that coming in. If we'd have just had you, we would have made it. That is their recruiting pitch. I just tell you that right now. But we know in this new era of college sports, money does play an enlarged factor over what it was 10 years ago. If it was 10 years ago, you could almost put it in the books that Ole Miss was about to have a top 10 recruiting class. But Ole Miss does a good job in their collective work as well. So I think if BJ Allen comes to Ole Miss and visits, there's a pretty good chance he doesn't leave without at least having a high-level number two where he is really a candidate to go play there. And there's also a chance he just commits. Because at this point, and this is not a shot at Mississippi State, so don't hear that, but at this point, they have to look at it to where, hey, Ole Miss is in a better situation than Mississippi State at the moment, and I can win games. Money matters, but winning matters more to these young kids who have to do this every single day. Because as Brian can tell you, there's nothing more miserable than practicing football, looking up, and you're 2-7.
That's rough, man. I think Mississippi State will be improved.
Yeah.
They proved that they could be a tough out for a lot of teams. I mean, Ole Miss struggled with them for a little bit last year, but Texas shouldn't have beat them, etc. They've improved a lot, but their roster's still not anywhere near where it needs to be to win those games, and that's why they lost. They don't have enough talent. They don't have enough BJ Allen. So, yeah, it's hard to get that ball rolling for them. Last point on recruiting here, Stephen. In-state, it's another good year. Do you think that this staff is going to focus on in-state more than Kiffin did, or is that just player by player? How do you think that's going to play out?
I think we'll find out in about 2 months. Once we hit official visit season, we'll have to see where the officials are coming from. I know that Lane just wanted to redline a piece of paper, and if you're good enough and above that red line, he was going to take you whether you're transfer portal or not, and most of the players that are above that red line are transfer portal. Pete was the lone thing on that staff that high school players got selected. The defensive line, Perkins and Eccles, they were high school players that were recruited by Pete. So the short answer is I don't know. I need to see what it looks like because, like we just said, this is the recruiting class for Ole Miss where they have all of the capital that they can play out in getting people to campus. And you have 5 years in a row, averaging 10 wins a year, all of that stuff, and a playoff berth, national semifinal. You finally have some stuff to play. Let's see how Ole Miss plays it out, because I like to think that they're going to go after high school hard because of what it can do. But in this era of the transfer portal, if you go after those players hard, who's to say you don't just pay $1 million for a prospect that in a year is going to be at another school? So that's another thing that they have to worry about as well.
I think that's a fair assessment. Stephen, tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
All right, you can check us out at Locked On Ole Miss on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We're on all the socials as well. If you subscribe to the All Access tier, you heard him talking about the subscription tiers a little bit earlier. We have 3 different people. The only place you really see them consistently is in that tier where they're doing videos and giving you extra stuff every single day. It's pretty awesome. Corey Burton, Dalen Flowers, Mike Huseman do a fantastic job. And we're getting ready to try and set this up to where by the time football season gets here, we have a machine in place ready to go. And it kind of starts right now.
Appreciate it. You can find the Portal Podcast wherever you get your pods, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, of course, on YouTube. This has been a crossover, Locked On Ole Miss and the Portal.